what are we valuing we're kind of at the academy level right now. In your mind, like, what are we valuing as law enforcement officers, or what is the admin valuing in their law enforcement officers across the board for the skills, for the material, the raw material they have to have in order to perform their job well on the street every day? And having done as many things as you can do, or you've done, I imagine you have some thoughts on this, and I'd like to hear those.
Yeah, well, there's a textbook answer, right? Where, well, we value an officer's ethics. We value their integrity. We value their investigative ability. We value their level of fitness and their ability to shoot. And then there's real life where, hey, we just got to get cars filled, beats covered, schedule handled. We got to get guys to answer these calls. And you know what? They've met all the standards set forth by the state of Florida or whatever state you're in. That means they're good enough. So there's the hopes and dreams, and then there's a reality, and then a lot of guys kind of fall
something in between.
Right.
There's that gap in between. That's been the biggest challenge for me. Is like, because if you're coming out with like, okay, so let's go back to the fitness piece, the guy in the academy that you had the conversation with. You've already told me that you don't care, it doesn't matter. I don't know if the question ever came up. Well, then what does matter? What have they been taught to? What has been instilled that what needs to matter? And I wonder, like, with a guy like that, and obviously you can't answer the question for him, but I just wonder what your thoughts are on, like, what do you think matters to the guy?
Well, as time goes on and you get to know people, you kind of see their behavior and how they prioritize things. And, this ended up being a lazier officer who did the bare minimum. And that's how he chose to handle his career. If that's acceptable by agency standards, that's on the agency.
Yeah, agreed. Now, as compared to the other officers that you work with, like, I'm sure you're not the only one feeling like this. What does that do to the team?
A lot of guys, most high performers will just dissociate from those people. And then they tend to gravitate towards each other. And I was on really, really awesome units where there were a lot of higher performers and we held each other accountable. And, comments get made, that guy's not too good, or, comments get made, but you just focus on what you're doing, and you try and put all that negativity aside. And that's just kind of how a lot of guys like to, navigate through their careers.
Yeah, sure. So you're gonna glom to, or you're gonna be attracted to the people that share more of the same values and work ethic and things that you've already mentioned here. And I get that. I just, like, again, I'm looking across the board and kind of what we're getting from law enforcement right now, and how that a lot of that is transferred on through the years. And here we are at this point where there seems to be a lot of infighting and a lot of disconnect between the officers themselves in terms of, like, who matters and who doesn't. And you're going out on the street every day. And so what you have is these, like, clubs, right within clubs. And it seems like you have a large number, it appears, you have a large number of officers. And I'm not saying this about everybody. I'm not saying about all the new people. I'm not saying that this is directly related to fitness or not. But it seems like a lot of people that are kind of going and they're just punching the clock and they're like, I'm going to do my job and I'm going to go home at the end of the day and this is what I signed up to do and I'm good. And I don't ever want to be a part of a club. I don't ever want to be a part of something bigger or part of a group of people that's going to push me to get better, to train harder, to work harder, to feel more connected to this. To me, that's a challenge. Obviously, from the fitness perspective, that I have larger challenges around it, and I probably have a larger connection to that. But I guess what really bothers me is that this has been institutionalized now, that it's okay to be like that. And it's okay to come and just check in and check out as long as you're good enough. And look, there's sometimes, who is it that says, I heard Mark Smith says, sometimes good enough is good enough, right? Good enough is. What is that? And again, going back to standards, which we're going to get into here, not having something to measure up to, or something that supposedly is supposed to be measured and then ends up not being measured at all, or doesn't matter in the end. It gets measured, but it doesn't matter how you do, how the breakdowns happen. And then we get to a point where the person that these things didn't matter to then ends up becoming a team leader or is in a leadership or administrative position, and how that then basically reinforces all the negative that comes along with that over the years. And now that's kind of what we're faced with. And the challenge in kind of undoing that sticky web is, well, I guess the challenge is undoing that sticky web and how to find a way to do it and get people more on the same page so that the group does come together. And those people, that middle group, there's a larger percentage of that middle group that's trying to level up. And that bottom end of that group is looking at it going, oh, well, if this is the new normal now, and it's just a couple of percentage points, whatever that is, that I need to be doing a little better, and I like to just come in and do my job and be left alone and fly under the radar and whatever else. They might level up to that too, just so that they can fly under the radar and not be bothered about it. Would you agree with that statement or not? Is that an accurate outlook on how things might go?
Yeah, and I agree with that. And one of the things I like to say is you can't expect performance you don't demand. So, from an administrative standpoint, no matter where you are, any business, any industry, when you demand a certain level of performance, you'll get guys and girls who want to either go above and beyond, or you have people that just want to meet that standard and be the gray man and just kind of cruise through life. And that's okay.
That's
But,
okay.
but you need to set a standard high enough as a leader that benefits whatever profession you're in. So
The
far as law
organization.
enforcement, right? So far as law enforcement, when you set a standard and you set a culture, within your agency that says, "Hey, you will perform at this level." Well, if you want high performers, we'll raise that bar just a little bit. Nothing crazy, but attainable. But the problem becomes when you remove that bar completely, which is very, very common in today's
It's
day and age in
apparent.
law enforcement.
Mm.
When you remove that bar completely and then bad things happen, and then the think tanks come back and go, well, how did this happen? Well, I can tell you where it started. You removed any
Right.
and all standards.
So let's talk about that. So on the fitness end of things. So that was interesting what you said there about there was a fitness standard at the academy, but in the end, it wasn't really a qualifier at all. So I can't imagine that there would be any leveling up at all from a fitness perspective, and trying to get that at some point now would be extraordinarily difficult because they were never asked they were never held accountable to any kind of a standard, and trying to implement one of those now would, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it would take a lot of time to undo that for an agency, even with an agency of 50. The more the obviously the higher the numbers, the harder it becomes because you have more people you got to impact. So I understand that at some point you wanted to champion and be behind getting this underway and instituting some type of a program that can help people get better. And a lot of that centers around setting a standard and how to set the standard. Can you walk us through kind of the experience you went through?